How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about Dissolving Classroom by Junji Ito. This is the new hardcover release put out by Kodansha. Basically this had been out in the States for a while, but as a paperback only release, and I had been just starting to seriously collect this stuff a little bit ago, and I saw this was coming, and I said to myself, wait up, the hardcover will be out soon, go ahead and buy it in hardcover. I mean, I'm always glad whenever his work gets brought over and translated and is available in the States officially, but if there's a hardcover coming, I'd much prefer that. So yeah, this in hardcover just came out October 25th, 2022, which was the same day that Viz would put out Junji Ito's Black Paradox. And I said this for my review of Black Paradox, but it was so great to go down to my local comic book shop just before Halloween and pick up two nice Junji Ito stories. That's pretty cool. This story is one of his long-form stories. Long-form, but pretty much episodic. Basically, you get these two siblings. The boy who's older, he's in late high school, and he has this thing where he's constantly apologizing, but you find out that words are basically his weapon, and that when he seems like he's apologizing to you, he's secretly doing a conversation with the devil, and that will bring in this radiation, and that will cause people to melt. Yeah, this is a sort of melting comic. And then you get his younger sister that has been corrupted by his satanic activity, and she's turned into a little hyperactive monster girl. She looks relatively normal, except for when she does way too big of a smile or, has the really long venom tongue. And she is more on the nose creepy. She's the evil little kid trope. But when you look at it, she's actually the less evil of the two. It wasn't her fault, and a lot of the time she spoils her brother's plans, tells the protagonist, you gotta be careful of my brother, he's gonna do this, And really, even though she's outwardly looking evil, she's not as bad as her brother. Her brother is so disingenuous. He'll do things, it's all his words, so compliments or apologies, whatever he says that sounds sincere, he's really not talking to you, he's really talking to the devil, and he'll be so polite, but disingenuous, and that sort of, lying to you, that really does get me, the fact that he portrays himself as such a good person, and even at times will act really, ignorant to what he's doing, where even we as a reader who's seen much more than the characters do, we question, does he really know he's evil? And yeah, he does, but he covers it up in such a way that's pretty dang evil. So it's a really interesting villain, a polite villain that's secretly even eviler than you might think. And I do think that's cool. So, we get the title, Dissolving Classroom, and that's named after the first story in this series. But if you're expecting a school book, this isn't really all about school. So it's the first chapter is a school story, and then every now and then we'll go to school because our characters are often, school age, but don't expect a school book. Also, we get, I believe, 5 chapters. 5 chapters, relatively episodic, where they go and they torment different characters in different settings. And then we get 2 more shorter bonus stories. And the shorter bonus stories, I believe they're under 10 pages each, so they're a good bonus, and I do like seeing Junji Ito work really short. He does good short stories, but it's kind of underrated how good he can do really short stories, and you get a weird, messed up concept, and then you get out. So these 2 bonus stories are fun. However, I will say the first one is called The Return. So it kind of leaves this unintentional impression that it's going to be a continuation to Dissolving Classroom, because you think, oh, The Return, it's the return of the Dissolving Classroom. No, these are completely unrelated. But that being said, this is a shorter release, so it is good to have a little bit more to, pad it out a bit, because out of Junji Ito's long-form stories, this and Cat Diary, both of them the Kodansha ones, are the shorter of the long-form stories, so always good to give it a little more into this release. Overall, I thought the stories were really fun, especially when we got to the end, because it does kind of start to wrap everything up and we do get a much bigger finale than we thought. I thought it was really cool, and plus dissolving stuff, classic gross out Junji Ito stuff, a few really gut-wrenching moments, and a few dark twists in there. Now that being said, the release, I think it's okay. When we switch to the close-up camera, I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of the release, but basically it's a little more on the expensive side, and it's not as good put together as what Viz is doing. It's fine though, and I really do love the hardcover upgrade, but it's not the best release ever, and we'll talk about that when we switch to the close-up camera. So I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and switch to the close-up camera. I'll show you guys more of the release. I'll also show you guys a little bit of the story and the art. I won't do any major spoilers, but I'll give you guys a better understanding as to what this is about. So without further ado, let's switch to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle, taking a closer look at Dissolving Classroom by Junji Ito. Let's go ahead and take the book closer to the camera, and we can see the cover here. Now, if you guys remember the cover for the paperback had these 2 siblings in front of a chalkboard with a bunch of like melted people in front of them, I think. And overall, I really did like that cover a whole lot better. This is from the chapter Dissolving Apartment, and it was basically the only chapter cover that was in full color, so one of the images that they could use without, that was in color and they wouldn't have to commission something new. I don't know why they just didn't use the old cover. If I had to guess, it would probably be rights or something, but I felt that that one was cooler, and we get this one, and it looks fine. It looks better as the chapter heading for Dissolving Apartment. I mean, this is Dissolving Classroom, which, again, like I said, it wasn't actually a school story, but still it feels odd to not have a classroom on the cover. And they sadly had to put the text kind of in front of the 2 siblings, And yeah, it's an okay cover, but I wish they could have just kept the old one or commissioned something new. And yeah, I don't know, not the best, but good enough. And hey, I do like it being hardcover. There's the spine, relatively plain, Dissolving Classroom, Junji Ito, Kodansha logo. And then on the back, that Dissolving Apartment chapter did have the first page in color, so that will be the back image here as well. And we get the plot summary, we get the Kodansha logo, the barcode, and we also get this, rated 16 plus, USA price of $24.95. Now, hardcover book, a full story, it's not quite 200 pages. $24.95 is an okay price, but let me just say this, and I guess this is the big can of worms I have to get out of the way. So we have this book. Now, here's a regular release from Viz. This is just a random one I pulled out. One of the Junji Ito story collections. This is Love Sickness. This is the book I started reading after I finished that one. And this is almost 400 pages, or more or less 400 pages. And the back of this is $22.99, so it's bigger, it's a little cheaper, but the thing that bugs me, and boy does it bug me, is this. Look at that. why can we not make the books the same size? Like, Viz doesn't have a copyright on the size. Maybe they just wanted to use the same page blocks as they had for the paperback version. That might be it, although they do change a little bit on the inside. I don't know, but it bugs me so much. And actually, if you guys have No Longer Human, it's a little smaller than No Longer Human as well, I think. So I don't know, it just bugs me that this is small. But it's also, in addition to being small, it's not big, which sounds kind of weird for me to say, but let me just explain what I mean by that. And I mean Kodansha's other Junji Ito hardcover release, Cat Diary, Yawn, and Mew. So this is the same publisher, and this was another book that was for the longest time only in paperback, and then they released it as hardcover. And they released it as an oversized hardcover. And overall, big books, you can see the art a little bit better, so that's cool. And this even has like embossing where you can feel the cat's tail and you can feel the cat diary here. It's a good big book. Now that being said, it did bug me when it sat on the shelf and it was way bigger than anything else. Why can we not have uniform sizes? But anyway, it was bigger, so I'm like, it sucks that it doesn't fit, but at least, you know, it's bigger, the art's bigger, it's a nice hardcover release. And when the same company was going to do the hardcover for Dissolving Classroom, I thought we'd get a big one as well, and then at least we have something on the shelf matching it. But no, we get a much smaller one. But on top of that, the little one, $24.95. And then you get this, $24.99. A difference of 4 cents to get that much bigger. I don't know, maybe they thought Cat Diary would sell more because it's a cool cat story. I don't know, but overall, this release is just a little unimpressive. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that it's in hardcover, but why is it so small? I don't know. And on top of that, and I feel like overall, I do like the story, and I did like reading through this. It's just the physical release being so small really bugged me. And also, I want to show you guys, let me find a good example of it. The text block was just a little off. Here's a random page with no major spoilers. Look at the page number down there. Yeah, some of my pages were just slid a little low, and the page numbers got cut off at the bottom. And then we get like extra space up here at the top. And plus this font they're using for the page numbers is like all creepy and spooky looking, but it's really hard to read too. One thing with this release I'd also like to point out is how they do onomatopoeias, you know, little sound effect bubbles. They actually leave the original Japanese and put a much smaller English translation beside them. That allows this sort of personification of the text to come through. But that being said, they are really small and sometimes hard to read. I don't have a particular preference for this. Some people might really like it. I think when they go ahead and change them fully, they're a lot easier to read. So whatever for me on this one. Okay, so a look at the physical release did turn into a little bit of a rant. Like I said, though, the story itself is good, but this is not how I would have released the book, and maybe it is because they feel that because of the paperback release, a lot of people already have it. Maybe they feel like it wouldn't sell very well, and they didn't want to put a whole bunch of money into the new release. I don't know, those are just theories, but overall, I just have some gripes about the physical release. But one thing they did change, if we open up the book, plain white in papers, we do get some color images. There's a color image of the little girl with the milt behind her, and we do get a new brief foreword by Junji Ito where he says, "I'm glad this is getting a hardcover. If it milts, blame this guy," and it's a milted version of Junji Ito. And this front page here, the title page is in color as well. And as I hinted at earlier, the Dissolving Apartment chapter does have its title page in color. And in the original paperback version, I think this was black and white. Like, the original image was color, but this pages were in black and white. And yeah, the first image is color. Color pages are nice, but like I said, I think there's only like 5 of them. But that is the biggest difference. And let's open it up to the table of contents. The table of contents, we see the 5 chapters of Dissolving Classroom, Beauty, Apartment, Shizumi in Love, sorry if I mispronounced that name, and the final chapter, Interview with the Devil. Then we get The Return, Children of the Earth. These are 2 short stories, and a brief afterword. And then, of course, an assurance that this is a work of fiction, in case anyone didn't know. We also get in the back pages this sort of comedic afterword, and that even features a little Junji Ito there apologizing. A fun little joke. We also get a few ads this time around. And this book, Blood on the Tracks, I've heard a lot about it, something about an evil mother. I really should pick it up. It says 11 volumes are out. Whew, that's a long series. But also, I want to look at the copyright information, which isn't always the most riveting thing, but copyright 2015 as Yokai Koshizu. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that, but yeah, this was first published in Moto Magazine from 2013 to 2014, and the collected version came out in 2015, and I think shortly after that we got the original paperback release of this, so I think it was pretty soon, but yeah, now it's 2022 and we're getting the hardcover. But anyway, I guess physical release rant over. I hope I wasn't being too angry, but gee, you know. Anyway though, what's much better is the actual story inside. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the story, a little bit of the art. I think I'll cover primarily the first chapter. I'll try not to spoil that too badly. But I'll show you guys a lot of the first chapter, and then I'll gloss over the other stories, and then a little bit with the bonus stories as well. So anyway, we open up the first story. We get, there's the dissolving classroom with him in front of the board. But we open up and we get a new student arriving in school, and they say, "Do you want anything to say to introduce yourself?" And he bows and says, "I'm terribly sorry." And everybody laughs at him and wonders what he's about, but he keeps on groveling and apologizing, and he'll do things like break a little vase and then overly apologize for that. And of course, this will lead him to be the target of bullies who start to go, "Hey, this guy's clearly weak, let's bully him." But our main girl starts to befriend him and say, "Hey, you're a nice guy, you should stick up for yourself a little more," stuff like that. But we do get this creepy little girl that starts to follow her around, and she'll chase the lead and pop out in front of her. And every now and then she'll do scary faces like this, you know, stick out her long tongue and try to spook people. And she'll get hit by a bus and wake up in the hospital. And that's when we get a bit of him coming in saying, "That's my sister, and I'm so sorry. She's a really bad person. What can I do to make it up for you?" But eventually, she'll start to hang out with the guy more and more, start to like him more and more, and she'll eventually decide that she can talk to the sister and try to fix her, and the sister will tell this sort of origin story about how they had abusive parents, he started torturing small animals, and after that, he made sort of a deal with the devil, and that why people are close to them, they'll start to melt, and that's where we get, here's him with the deal for the devil, and then they say that every time after that, he's apologizing to the devil or complimenting the devil, and whenever he says anything nice, it's really for the sake of the devil. And then, of course, you get the dissolving aspect. Whenever he brings up the devil, people start to get infected with the radiation, and they start to melt. And I won't spoil exactly how this ends, but this is just the first chapter. But let's just say a horrible and gooey mess, happens at the end of this. But anyway, after the first chapter, we get a bunch of episodic stuff. For example, this next chapter, Dissolving Beauty, where we get him, this girl, and the devil behind him. And we get a girl who is going to reconnect with one of her old friends she hasn't seen in a while, and it's this lady, and we get a little brief image. She's supposed to look like that, but now she looks like this, and we see that Yuma there, the older sibling, is her boyfriend who constantly pays her compliments, but she starts to look horrible even though she says, even though he says, "Oh, you're so beautiful," she gets uglier and uglier, and when they're alone, she's like, "It's good that she has someone like you," and he's like, "What? No, I really see her as beautiful," and of course, you're beautiful too. So that's the sort of Dissolving Beauty chapter. After that, we get the Dissolving Apartment chapter, and I think this one in here is my favorite. We get this, girl who lives in an apartment and is visited by the parents of these siblings, who by this point in the story we're told are long dead. But what are they doing here? They drop off some bad food, but then we hear a bunch of yelling coming from upstairs, and it's a case of domestic abuse where the parents are being mean towards both the siblings, and a bunch of the neighbors here start to go, should we get involved? Should we speak up? What do we do about these abusive people that live upstairs? But of course, it's not going to be that simple, not going to be that straightforward, especially with the devil involved, and it gets to be, again, another crazy story. And then after that, we get Shizumi in Love, and I think that is the image that in the very front of the book we'd get a closer cropped and colored version of. This story, you basically get that the evil siblings' actions have been sort of turned into rumors, so everybody kind of has a vague idea of what they're doing, and then we get this random kid, and he is walking along when he meets the main little girl, and the main little girl will sort of pounce on him and start to lick him. She's developed a crush on him, and unfortunately for the little kid, it becomes quite creepy and awkward. Here's her with her makeup on, a really creepy face there. And overall, it's kind of an interesting concept, but I will have to say this is probably the weakest of the stories. Yeah, you do get to see a little bit of the world starting to know what's going on here, and we do get a little bit of, a revelation about the victims, but overall, it's a relatively standard story. Not the best. Now, the last story is really good, but I won't spoil it too much, because it is the finale, and I don't want to talk too terribly much about this. But Interview with the Devil, where there's a mysterious house in the middle of nowhere, that's where they fled to, because these siblings have to keep moving. But we get a reporter going to the house and trying to confront these two. And you see them being kind of at the end of their rope, making desperate movements, but also a really unexpected ending. I thought, okay, yeah, I can see their sort of crimes are catching up with them. I can totally see where this is. But then after that, like when you got to where the story's really going, where the end is, it got so much more bigger and epic, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually a really cool ending. After that, though, we do have the short stories. The Return, where this guy's fiance is dying, and she says, I'll come back to you. Now, these short stories are, again, less than 10 pages, so don't expect anything too substantial. But this first one is almost like a riddle. She's dead, and he says, I feel her around. I look for her on the streets. I try to see if she got reincarnated. But then he says, I feel her. Sometimes I feel her in the air. Sometimes I feel her deep below the ground. And other times from the east and west. Where is she? And it is kind of a little bit of a riddle story to figure out what's going on here. But then also a case of, oh, that was messed up. Now let's move on, because we're only, I think, 7 pages or so. And then after that, we get the short story, Children of the Earth. And in Children of the Earth, these parents, a whole class of kids went missing, and they start to look for them in the woods when these two eventually do find them. And I won't flip the page. I don't want to mess up that reveal. But let's just say the children are in a very interesting predicament. And it is a really interesting, messed up Junji Ito visual. But again, less than 10 pages. We get in, we see something crazy, and then we're done, you know? So, overall, a pretty fun book. You know, yeah, I did gripe a little bit about the release, but still, the contents on the inside are really fun as well. So I do like the story. I just wish it was either oversized or at least matched. I wish we had the old cover. I wish it was a little bit better of a release. But overall, it's fine. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Junji Ito playlist. I've talked about The Black Paradox, his recent one. I talked about Shiver and Uzumaki. I even unboxed some Pocket Curses. So if you guys want to see me talk about a bunch more Junji Ito, that playlist should pop up here on the bottom. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.